me to introduce Elliot Zeisel, Distinguished Fellow at AGPA. Before mentioning Elliot's group accomplishments, I want to say a few words about his background. 4 months after Elliot's father was born in Poland, Elliot's paternal grandfather left in 1917 to escape the pogroms. Elliot's grandfather settled in Muncie, an Orthodox Jewish bungalow community 30 miles north of New York City. At age 7, Elliot's father and the rest of the family came to America and joined the paternal grandfather. Elliot's father had a profound influence on Elliot's life. The 7 languages his father spoke brought a wide range of people into his life, countering the somewhat insular world of Muncie. As Elliot put it, quote, "For my father, his tent was always open." His father, community leader in Muncie, was instrumental in turning a farmhouse into a yeshiva that eventually educated 500 people, into a synagogue on weekends. Elliot's love of groups, passion for community building, education, and charitable giving are natural outgrowths of his father's gregarious, generous, and inclusive nature. At the same time, as a youngster, Elliot experienced his father as intimidating, especially the fact that coming to this country without a word of English, he eventually spoke the King's English. Elliot, a shy, awkward, severely dyslexic child, was tongue-tied in his father's presence. Elliot sought out people along the developmental way to help him overcome some of these childhood demons. Lou Ormond was especially significant in this regard. Elliot spent 24 years in Lou's groups, Elliot long-term therapy, and came to realize that his own comments, as well as Lou's interventions, meaningfully impacted other people. Elliot's accomplishments in the group world are too numerous to mention, but in the time allotted, but here are some highlights. His well-attended institutes at the annual meeting have taught many students and practitioners the modern analytic approach. He has served on the AGPA and certification boards and is co-chair of the Open Sessions Committee. As a board member and vice chair of the Group Foundation, he has been one of the most successful fundraisers in the history of the organization. Since 2006, he has raised close to $300,000 and secured $35,000 in annual pledges from donors unrelated to AGPA. Elliot is a founding member of the Center for the Advancement of Group Studies, where he has served as co-director of administration, a faculty member, and supervisor. As a faculty member and then the first director of the Center for Modern Psychoanalytic Studies, he has taught hundreds of students in the theory and practice of modern psychoanalysis, of modern psychoanalytic group. He has also helped develop their first group psychoanalysis training program. He has given invited presentations to 14 group societies, centers, and organizations in the US and Canada. And from 209 to 211, he was guest lecturer and group leader for the Israeli Institute for Group Analysis. Elliot has also established training groups in Austin, Texas, Rochester, New York, and New York City. A letter from an Austin participant captures the essence of Elliot's passion for and commitment to group therapy and training. Quote, "I first met Elliot in 1999 as a member of his specific interest section. Prior to this institute, I had never encountered a therapist as alive, accessible, and involved with their group. I had also never encountered someone who had taught group leadership with such clarity and passion. At the time, I didn't realize that I had met the most influential mentor and leader in my life as a group clinician. With great pleasure and respect, I present to you Distinguished Fellow Elliot Zeisel."
What Jerry didn't tell you about my many achievements is that at birth, I weighed 6 pounds, 6 ounces. Self-disclosure is a wonderful thing at the right time and in the right group. Today, this has got to be the right time, and you constitute the right group. With that in mind, I'd like to disclose some things that I have never spoken about in an open session. I attended my first AGPA meeting, annual meeting, 33 years ago, and I've been here pretty regularly since then. Some of you have heard me talk about my evolution as a therapist and the slow process of moving from unconscious incompetence to conscious incompetence. I came to AGPA a young man, eager to learn and determined to become more competent and confident. I had many mentors at the annual meeting. I was exposed to a variety of methods and techniques that expanded my training. Most importantly, I was helped by the mentoring process as part of any new presenter's experience. Here, it's not sink or swim, it's swim with the buddy. Trial, error, and learning combined with the kindness of colleagues slowly built my confidence as a clinician and teacher. I learned to tolerate making 5 mistakes a day, as long as I could learn something from each one. Now, this was a relatively new experience for me as a learner. Jerry already told you something about that. Since my career as a student got off to a very rocky start. As a child growing up in the 50s, I was described in report cards as a bright boy not working to his potential. Although I was tested and measured, there was no explanation for my underachievement. Higher math was Greek to me, and I couldn't read nor spell. Faced with a multiple-choice spelling test, I measured the words with my fingers in an attempt to match the size of the word to the available space. I became visually adept. Later in life, this may contribute to my ability as an artist. But back then, dyslexia or ADD were not in the diagnostic manual. I was left to learn on my own, never trained to study or organize my efforts as a student. As a self-object, it was assumed that I'd achieve as my father had. Instead, self-doubt and depression became my schoolmates. In my second year of high school, I was asked to leave the private parochial school my father had attended. Overnight, I was thrust into the terrifying experience of the public school, surrounded by people different from the Orthodox Jewish world I inhabited at the time. I grew more depressed and withdrawn. I felt suicidal. The only break from this bleak existence came each summer when I escaped to summer camp and distinguished myself as an athlete and group member. Ironically, the director of the camp was the principal of the school I'd been asked to leave. Through the end of my senior year in high school, my prospects were dim. I had a 66 average and SAT scores in the 300s. That's when the test was based on a scale of 800. I think it was math about 340, English about 380. And then came the call. It was my former principal and camp director, David Weinbach. He inquired about my plans for college. When I told him I wasn't sure what I was going to do, he offered to sponsor me and have me admitted to Yeshiva University, the college his high school was attached to, and a college you know who attended with distinction. David said that in the years he'd known me, he'd seen me lead and manage responsibilities with maturity beyond my years. My wife said to me when I was rehearsing this with her that he was the first therapist in my life. He saw potential in me. He could hold it for me, and then slowly allow me to unlock the resistance to having one life. I jumped at the opportunity to join my old schoolmates and finally proved to my father and to myself that I could succeed as a student. I took a limited load of classes at the outset, including a course in study skills, and very slowly began to emerge as a student with potential. I'm here today to tell you that the path was arduous that suffering was an essential part of my training. And it was the imperfection, not the drive toward perfection, that's made me who I am. The numbers were not a measure of the man I was to become. And finally, that human generosity and understanding can be extraordinarily healing. I want to acknowledge my wife, Mary, my collaborator in life, my son, David, and his friend, Jessica, my nephew, David, and his wife, Robin, my parents, Henry and Gloria Zeisel, my analysts, Dolores Wilbur and Lou Ormond, all the members of any group I've ever been a part of, including this one, for your role in making this moment possible. It's allowed me to arrive at this day with you and receive the wonderful recognition you've bestowed, that of Distinguished Fellow of the AGPA. Thank you, all.